I want to welcome you to the Bedford Lyceum. And the Bedford Lyceum is a free lecture series covering a wide variety of topics, from medicine to music, world affairs to financial investment, travel logs to poetry. All talks are free and open to the public and proudly posted by the First Parish in Bedford, Unitarian Universalist. This presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube next week. We'll post the link in the anno, and for other viewers, please feel free to email me for the link. And I'll put my email address in the chat, but it is mountainbreeze52@gmail.com. So let me just put that in the chat for now. We'd like to ask that folks remain muted if it's okay for the balance of the talk. We'll open it to Q&A at the end, and everybody is welcome to unmute when you're called upon, and we hope to have enough time for everybody. This may run a little bit over. I've spoken with our presenter about that. She has a lot to share, but we hope you'll stay for the Q&A portion. So let's start and welcome everybody again. The Bedford Lyceum is ending the current season today with a presentation by retired elementary school librarian Doris Smith. For more than 30 years, Doris was a familiar figure in the elementary schools, overseeing their libraries and getting to know hundreds of Bedford children and their parents. She's also a noted storyteller. Doris has served as a past president of the Massachusetts School Library Association and has had many opportunities to study children's literature during summers at Children's Literature New England's conferences. These have been held in Canada, England, Ireland, and here in the United States. She's also traveled extensively with the NIE group, which coordinates visits with authors, illustrators, librarians, and educators throughout Europe. Today, Doris will introduce a few of the many children's picture books that focus on race and diversity. Even if you don't have a young person with whom actually to share these titles, please sit back, enjoy, and appreciate these wonderful books for yourself. We're delighted to introduce Doris and Doris Smith. And Doris, please let me know when you would like me to start sharing the slides. I'm going to put this in speaker mode, and we'll focus on you. Can everyone see her? I don't hear. Okay, great. Okay, go ahead and just let me know when you want me to start sharing the slides, Doris.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces from a lot of different backgrounds, from my backgrounds, from different experiences. It's great. So today we're going to, as Ellen said, I'll go through the books, and then we'll have our Q&A at the end. And I have spent the last month just reading lots and lots and lots of picture books on this topic. And I had a hard time winnowing it down to the few books that we're going to look at today. So Ellen, why don't we start with the share, please?
Okay.
I think any talk on this topic has to start with Snowy Day. It was published in 1962 by Ezra Jack Keats, and it was a Caldecott winner, meaning that it won an award for its illustrations. And they are such wonderful collages. And this has been one of my favorites. And you may have noticed that if you went to the post office, you can actually get Snowy Day stamps. So I encourage you to do that. I'm going to read to you just a few pages from this book. So Ellen, next slide. What we're going to be looking for is something that's not there, as I read these few pages from Snowy Day. So next slide. Okay, one winter morning, Peter woke up and looked out the window. Snow had fallen during the night, and it covered everything as far as he could see. Next. After breakfast, he put on his snowsuit and he ran outside. The snow was piled up very high along the street to make a path for walking. Next. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His feet sank into the snow. He walked with his toes pointing out like this, and then he walked with his toes pointing in. Well, they were pointing out, now they're pointing in like this. Okay, next slide. Now we're going to jump over. He's played outside and he's ready to go into the house. He picked up a handful of snow and another and still another, and he packed it round and firm and put the snowball in his pocket for tomorrow. And then he went into his warm house. He told his mother all about his adventures while he took off his wet socks. I consider this book what I would call a breakthrough book, because it's a first picture book to show a Black child without ever mentioning it in the text. Nowhere does it say a young Black boy went out into the play in the snow. And that's, to me, that's what makes this book so wonderful. It's just a child playing in the snow and enjoying it. So as I said, this has been amongst my favorite books. Now we're going to move to another book that we're going to read all the way through. Should we go to the next slide? This is called Something Happened in Our Town, a child's story of racial injustice. Now, this book was published in 2018, and it was written by 3 psychologists at Emory University of Medicine, Marianne Solano, Marietta Collins, and Ann Hazard. They have worked together with children and families in Atlanta for over 20 years. And this book received the 2018 Parenting Product Award, and it was listed on the American Library Association's Banned and Challenged book list as number 6. So essentially, the authors divided this story into 3 parts. First, we have a white girl and her family. The second part, we hear the Black boy and his family talking. And the third, we see an action taken by these 2 students based on these discussions with their parents. So I'm going to so let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to read the story to you. So if you will bear with us. Something bad happened in our town. The news was on the TV, the radio, and the internet. The grown-ups didn't think the kids knew about it, but the kids in Miss Garcia's class heard some older kids talking about it, and they had questions. Next. After school, Emma asked her mother, "Why did the police shoot that man?" "It was a mistake," said her mother. "I feel sad for the man and his family." "Yes, the police thought he had a gun," said her father. "Well, it wasn't a mistake," said her sister Liz. "The cops shot him because he was Black." Emma was confused. He's brown, he's not Black," she said. "Some people have dark brown skin and some have light brown skin," Emma's father explained. "Black usually means African Americans. Most of their ancestors were brought here from Africa as slaves." Next. "I know what a slave is," said Emma. "That's when you have to do whatever the other person says." Yes, slaves had to do whatever white people told them to do. Even after slavery ended, white people didn't let Black people live where they wanted, go to school with white people, or vote. Well, who are white people? White people came here from places in Europe or Russia or other countries. We are white, even though our skin is light tan. Next. "Did our family do those bad things a long time ago?" asked Emma. "Yes," answered her mother. Back when many white people thought they were better than Black people, even though it wasn't true." Liz added, "Some white people still think most Black men and boys are dangerous, even though they're not." Well, was the man who got shot dangerous? Asked Emma. No, her mother said. Shooting him was a mistake. It was a mistake that is part of a pattern. Like the pattern on my blanket? Emma asked. Yes, but this pattern is being nice to white people and mean to Black people, and it is an unfair pattern. Next. Suppose you had a birthday party and you invited everyone in your class except the Black kids, her mother said. How would the Black kids feel? Well, that would be sad, Emma said, or mad, they would feel. You would be missing out because you never know who's going to be your best friend, said Liz. And you can help others to be fair, said her mother. Like telling Anna to stop teasing Ling about her name, asked Emma. And her mother gave her a hug, just like that. Next. Now in another house, Josh asked his mother, can police go to jail? Yes, said his mother. Why do you ask? That white policeman who shot the Black man, said Josh, will he go to jail? What he did was wrong, said his mother. Next. But he won't go to jail, said his father. Why not? Asked Josh. Cops stick up for each other, said Josh's brother Malcolm, and they don't like Black men. And Josh was confused. Why not? Some police are Black. You're right, said his mother. Uncle James is a police officer, and so is his friend Kenya. There are many cops, Black and white, who make good choices, said his father, but we can't always count on them to do what's right. Next. Malcolm added, I could get stopped by the police just because I'm Black, even if I don't do anything wrong. That's not fair, Josh said. What if it was a white man in the car? Would the police have shot him? They probably wouldn't have even stopped the car, said his father. Sometimes white people are treated better than Black people, said his mother, but it's not right. Everybody should be treated fairly. Josh's mother gave him a hug. We're proud of who we are. Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela were strong and brave Black leaders. They showed us what we can stand up for our rights and set good examples for others. They were treated unfairly, but they helped others learn to be more fair. Next. Some people haven't learned yet, said his father angrily. Why are you mad? Asked Josh. I'm mad because we're still treated poorly sometimes, but I could use my anger to make things better, said his father. Black people have a lot of power if we work together to make changes. Next. I have power, Josh said, and I'm smart. And his father smiled. You're right. His mother added, and you can change people's hearts by sticking up for someone who is not treated fairly. Like how Malcolm sticks up for me when kids tease me about my glasses, Josh asked. He tells them to step off. Just like that, his parents said. Next. The next day, a new kid joined Emma and Josh's class. His name was Omad, and he was from a country far away. Omad didn't know where to sit or what to do because it was his first day in school. He talked a little bit, but it was hard to understand him. He said he was learning English. Next. After lunch, the class went outside to play soccer, and Daniel and Sophia picked kids to be on their teams. And all of the kids were picked to be on the team except Omad. Daniel said Omad probably didn't know how to play because he was new. Sophia said Omad might not be good at soccer. But then Josh remembered what his mother had said about sticking up for people who are treated unfairly. And Emma remembered what her mother had said about unfair patterns and birthday parties. Next. All of a sudden, Omad wasn't alone. Emma and Josh were leading them to their team. We have enough kids on our team, Daniel said. We don't need him. But Josh is ready. Step off, he said. He's playing. Yes, said Emma. We don't want him to miss out. We don't want to miss out. Next. Just like that, Emma and Josh gained a new friend and started a better pattern in their school. Now, I just want to go on and just give you a little more background on this book. One of the challenges to this was in Binghamton, New York, and the protesters said that the book contained a blatant anti-police message and leaves the impression that young children cannot trust the police. So parents and school board members discussed the book, and the result of that was it resulted in the book not being banned because they felt that the book resulted in a meaningful dialogue among students, parents, and teachers. A good thing about this book, and in the back there are notes to parents and caregivers, but there are 8 pages of suggestions. And also I found on YouTube an interview with the authors. And so you'll see the address in the bibliography, but if you just go on YouTube and look for coffee Q&A with the authors of Something Happened in Our Town, you should find it. And I found that very interesting. We're going to go next. If we could go to next. But I want you to go to the next one now. Okay, we'll come back. Well, go back one, please. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. A lot of people who attend the church, and you've probably seen these green bumper stickers that say the most radical thing we can do is to introduce people to one another. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk about the next book. Next. Unspeakable, the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, this book was written by Carol Boston Weatherford and illustrated by Floyd Cooper. And sometimes I hear people refer to an event saying, well, I never heard about that. And I think, well, I have. And I think, well, maybe it's because had been a history major in college, but I was also a children's librarian, and often I learned about events in our histories from children's picture books. But would you expect to learn about a massacre in a children's book? Unspeakable tells the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre, which happened 101 years ago. And the New York Times article titled "Behind the Jim Crow Curtain" by Brent Staples on May 28, 2021 began like this. The city of Tulsa, Oklahoma unleashed hell on earth 100 years ago this month when it deputized part of the mob that looted and burned the prosperous African-American community of Greenwood. When the carnage subsided, perhaps as many as 300 Tulsans lay dead. 35 square blocks of homes, churches, and schools, along with a storied business district known as Black Wall Street, had been systematically torched and reduced to ashes. And for 100 years, few people talked about the events of those 2 days. And now we have this picture book that won this year in 2022. It was the Coretta Scott King Award for both writing and illustrations. It was a Caldecott honor book for its illustrations. It won the Cybert as an honor book. And this award, and that's the award that's given to the most distinguished informational book published in the US in English. But in addition, this book is also long listed for the National Book Award, which will be announced on November 16th, November 22, and we can hope that it's going to win. But you know, this picture book can be used at many different levels. In fact, it has been used with older students as an introduction to a research project on this topic. But it can also be read to a child that's sitting safely in your lap. And I know that we're going to have a lot you'll have a lot more questions or statements about this, but let's go on next. Now, so I referred to the bumper sticker that said the most radical thing that we can do is to introduce people to one another. So the books that I'm going to show you now are books that I think fit in that category. Books that we see we're all part of the one family. And this book is a great example. It's called Bippity Bop Barbershop. And Miles and his father are off to a big event. Miles is getting his first haircut at the barbershop where his father gets his, and he's excited, but he's a little nervous as he thinks about the clippers. Now, the men in the shop give Miles support, saying he's brave, but it's when he hears the sound of the clippers and he worries, Mr. Seymour might accidentally cut off his ear. So he ducks down low and he throws the cape over his head. But his father assures him, saying he too was scared the first time he got his hair cut. And with the encouragement of his father, he makes it through his first haircut. And when Miles was asked how he wanted his haircut, he said, just like his father's. And when his father was asked, he replied, just like Miles. So let's go next. And we have Maya Lin, the architect of light and lines designer of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. While in college, Maya entered a contest to design a memorial to honor soldiers who died during the Vietnam War. She believed that a name brings back memories of a person more than a photo. She studied the area where the memorial was to be located and saw the memorial as a cut in the ground. She designed a long polished wall to be placed in a soft space of green. The judges were surprised when she was chosen because she wasn't famous while she was just still in college, and there were hearings and many objected to her design. But finally, it was accepted and built. Now, my brother Joe's name is on that wall. And as I stood one foggy morning in DC, touching my brother's name, I was grateful for Maya Lin's design. So next, please. Don't you love this illustration? So this is Queen of Physics, how Wu Chin Chung helped unlock the secrets of the atom. Now, when Qian was born in China, girls were not valued nor considered as smart as boys. Her parents thought differently. They knew she could be smart and brave. Her parents ran a school and they taught her all that they could. But then it was time for her to go to another school that would help continue her studies. And at that school, she discovered biology, chemistry, and physics, and they were all connected by the language of mathematics. She loved physics. And when she was 17, she traveled to the National Central University to continue studying physics. And later she went to Berkeley, California, and studied the physics of atoms. Enrico Fermi asked her to help him with an experiment he could not prove. She helped him prove his theory, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize. Two physicists named Yang and Li needed help with one of their theories. She helped them, and they won the Nobel Peace Prize, but still no prizes for her. But the Smithsonian Magazine called her the first lady of physics research, and Newsweek declared her Queen of Physics. And so did her students. So next, Paper Son, the inspiring story of Tyrus Wong, immigrant and artist. In 1919, Chinese immigrants were not allowed into the United States unless they could prove they were citizens of high status, a scholar, a merchant, a businessman, or a child of such a citizen. So his father pretended to be a merchant named Keats. So both father and son had to learn all about him. So when they could answer questions correctly when quizzed by immigration officials. His father cleared immigration, but the son did not. For weeks he was held before being brought in front of the immigration officials and bombarded with questions. Fortunately, the boy answered correctly and was released from Angel Island in San Francisco, California. He and his father went to Sacramento looking for opportunities. And in school, the boy was given a new name, Tyrus Wong. He did not like school, but he did like art. And because they were poor, his father had him practice calligraphy by writing with water on old newspapers, and then he would repeat it when it dried. Finally, his father was able to send Tyrus to the Otis Art Institute in Los Angeles, where he learned to paint and draw in Western style, but he also liked art from the Sung Dynasty. He graduated at the top of his class and he was hired by the Walt Disney Studio. And one day he learned that he could combine the background, he learned that he could combine the art from the East and the West. So he spent days creating what he called the feeling of woods and mountains for the upcoming movie Bambi. And when Walt Disney looked, he thought that these drawings were breathtaking. And so, as we know, Bambi became a groundbreaking movie. But Tyrus was fired by the Walt Disney Studios because they thought he'd participated in an employee strike. But he never stopped painting, and later in his life, he discovered a love of kites, and he lived to be the age of 106. Next. Mango, Abuela, and Me. Now, this book won the 2016 Pura Belpe Honor Award for both its illustrations and its text. So in this book, Mia's abuela is coming to live with Mia and her parents. But how will we communicate, thinks Mia. She doesn't speak Spanish. Her grandmother doesn't speak English, and they are sharing a room. How will I tell her things a grandmother needs to know? How will she teach me what a granddaughter needs to know? One day after school, her abuela was making meat pies, and Mia said, dough. Abuela said dough, but also masa, and rolled it flat. Masa, Mia said. And so when her grandmother dropped a spoonful of meat on the label, she said carne, and Mia came carne, meat. And so they traded words back and forth. Mia began to put labels on everything in the house, labels that had the English words. And one day, Mia saw a parrot in the pet shop, and it gave her an idea. She said to her mother, she can keep Abuela company while I'm in school. And soon Mango, that was the name they gave the parrot, began to say things like, Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Abuela practices words with Mango, and soon Abuela begins to ask harder things like, has the mailman come yet? So next, please. Drum Dream Girl. I love this book. The illustrations and the poem is filled with the rhythms of the drums that this girl loved. She loved drums, but her father said, girls do not play the drums. And so this is the story of Mio Castro Zaldariga, who also with her sisters formed the Cuba's first all-girl dance band. Emila became a world-famous musician playing alongside American jazz greats, and at the age of 15, she played her bongo drums at a birthday party for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Next. My puppy has a motorcycle. Daisy Ramona loves riding around her community where her family lives on her father's motorcycle. When her father, a carpenter, arrives home from work, she meets them with their helmets, and soon they are on a motorcycle, and with the shiny blue of the motorcycle and the orange of the setting sun, it is as if they were glowing as they ride. They ride through the town by the church, the market, the murals on the walls of the stores telling their history. And when they stop for shaved ice cream, I find the store is closed. But Daisy loves her city and sees the new homes her father is building, her school, the post office. She and her father see changes in the community, and then she knows that there will be more, but it will always be their home. Now, the author of this book used to ride through her city of Corona, California, with her father on the back of his motorcycle. And her book, this book, is her love letter to Corona. So next. This book is written by John Harrington, who is an astronaut and a member of the Chickasaw Nation. He tells the reader about the training he got when preparing to go into space. And in 2002, when he was going to fly to the International Space Station, the president of the Chickasaw Nation presented a Chickasaw blanket to NASA. His people were so proud of him, and they came from miles away to sing, dance, and celebrate one of their own heading to space. Now, the last page of the book has a vocabulary list with space terms that give the English word, the Chickasaw word, its pronunciation, as well as a translation. Now, the Chickasaw language is a very descriptive one, as we see the word astronaut translates into above walker, which is what John did when he took his spacewalk. He was the first enrolled member of a Native American tribe to fly in space. And today he teaches and encourages Native American youth the importance of space travel. Next, please. Fry bread, a Native American family story. The author, Kevin Noble Mallard, uses this story of bread as the story of the American Indians as they embrace community and culture in the face of opposition. The fry bread is food, shape, sound, color, flavor, time, art, history, place, nations. The fry bread symbolizes everything. When the tribes were moved, their historic ways of farming changed so that so did their dietary traditions. From federal rations of powdered, canned, and other dried government-issued foods, fry bread was born. And he says, if there is one thing that all natives can agree upon about fry bread, it's that everybody else's is wrong. So the soft illustrations throughout this book incorporate the traditions, geometric patterns, and references to Native American cultures, and all this to send the message that says, we are still here. At the end of the book, we find his own fry bread recipe and the names of the 573 recognized tribes written on the end papers. Next. So we have the polio pioneer, Dr. Jonas Salk, and the polio vaccine. At the end of World War I, Jonas Salk and his family fled persecution in Russia and Lithuania because they were Jewish. They came to the United States seeking safety. His parents taught their children the importance of education, kindness, and of doing good works. So when he grew up, he attended the City College of New York, and there he discovered chemistry. He wanted to learn to make medicine that would help people. After medical school, he became a doctor and a researcher. And he and his friend, Dr. Francis, worked on finding a way to prevent the flu. And they developed a flu vaccine and they saved thousands of lives each year. But then came polio. It paralyzed or killed thousands. No one was safe from the disease. Dr. Salk and his team of scientists labored day and night trying to find the answer, and they did. In 1955, he announced to the world, the vaccine works. And within a few years, cases of polio were almost completely gone. So thank you, Dr. Salk. This book won the 2021 Sidney Taylor Book Award, and that's the award given annually to the best Jewish book for children of that year. Next, please. Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, a Muslim book of colors. This picture book, with its colorful illustrations and informative text, captures the world of Islam, celebrating its tradition. Each page is immersed in a different color. Red, on the page with red, it says, red is the rug Dad kneels on to pray, facing Mecca 5 times a day. So we are introduced to a color as well as information about Islam, and so it continues throughout the book. The author Hannah Khan takes particular interest in writing about her Muslim culture. So next. These are awards that are given for children's picture books. The Pero Belpe Award, established in 1966, and honors a Latino or a Latina writer and illustrators whose works best portray, affirm, and celebrate the Latino culture in an outstanding work of literature for children and youth. And then the Asian Pacific American Library Association, the goal of the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature is to honor and recognize individual work about Asian and Pacific Americans and their heritage based on literary and artistic merit. Next. And the Coretta Scott King Book Awards. They are given annually to outstanding African American authors and illustrators of books for children and young adults that demonstrate an appreciation of African American culture and universal human values. And this award commemorates the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and honors his wife, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, for her courage and determination as she continued to work for peace and world brotherhood. And this award began in 1969. When this award is given, it's given to the best written, the best illustrated picture book. It's given to a new artist, a new in the field. And there's an honor book for the author and an honor book for the illustrator. So you see the Coretta Scott King Award, by having that many awards over the years since 1969, you'll see on the bookshelves, and if you go in the bookstores, there's a wonderful collections of books on African Americans. And the Sidney Taylor Award recognizes the best in Jewish children's literature, and the medals are awarded annually for outstanding books that authentically portray the Jewish experience. And this award was established in 1968 by the Association of Jewish Libraries. Next, please. And I hope that you will visit the Bedford Public Library, because they have these wonderful bibliographies on if you see the Latina, Hispanic, Native American stories, Black stories, and Asian Pacific. So each one has a nice long list of books. You'll have plenty to read. Next, please. Honey, I Love, and Other Love Poems by Eloise Greenfield. I'd like to end with reading a poem called Thing from this book. Now, the poet, author, and illustrator Ashley Bryant used to end his talks with this poem. Those of you who are from Children's Literature New England will remember when Ashley did this. So in honor of Ashley today, I would like to read this poem, and I'll read it through once, called Things. Went to the corner, walked in the store, bought me some candy, ain't got it no more, ain't got it no more. Went to the beach, played on the shore, built me a sand house, ain't got it no more, ain't got it no more. Went to the kitchen, lay down on the floor, made me a poem, still got it, still got it. So I love that poem. So we can go back to, we can leave the slides and open it up for Q&A now. And Ellen, I guess we'll let you choose who to speak. There's Sandy. Sandy Kelly has her hand up.
Doris, I tried to look it up quickly while you were talking, and I ended up at the Bedford, New Hampshire Public Library. Do you know if the one in Massachusetts has those bibliographies online? Because I've been trying to duplicate some for Westford's library.
You know what? I didn't check. I was in the library and I saw them and I was like, wow, this is this is great and very timely. So, but you could, Sharon might be able to help us with this, but I think if you just check there or just.
I will inquire.
Yeah.
I believe you would be happy to know that one of the people that started this project I'm working on for the Westford Library was one of your former students, and she's now our young adults librarian in Westford, Jess Diamond.
Oh, so, great.
Yeah,
oh, that's wonderful.
I'll pass this video on to her.
Oh, thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Also, if you use Town of Bedford, Massachusetts, you get to Bedford.
Yeah, I think it was the
now we know.
Okay. And in the participants, let's see if there's anybody else who's raised their virtual hand. I don't see anybody.
Daryl and Sue Davis.
Okay, so Daryl, why don't you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Doris. It's great to see you. And thank you so much for your selection. It's wonderful. I'll be looking up all those books. And thank you for the gift of ending by remembering Ashley Bryant. Thanks.
Yeah. He was a wonderful man, a very, very special man.
And who's the other person? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Sue David.
So Sue David, if you want to just unmute yourself, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this lovely presentation and also for the wonderful list of all these books. As a grandmother, it's nice to know that I have a list I can look at, and I've jotted down some of the notes as notes, some of your comments. I'm curious as to, however, what ages these books are for. Can you give me some sort of a range? That might help me and other grandparents too. And I especially liked your comment about the Tulsa massacre because I had never even heard of this myself until many, many years, only in the last 10 years or so. And the burning, which is a reissue of the book that was done, I guess, initially in the early 2000s, has just come out now and is a bestseller. It seems that we are now able, hopefully, to continue to discover more of stuff that we should have known growing up that we never knew about. So do you have any comments about the ages? I would appreciate knowing that.
I think for that particular book, I would use it in response to a question And I don't know, it wouldn't be the book you'd read before you went to bed.
Okay. And for the other books,
I-
do they cover a certain age range?
I'm
for
sorry.
children?
Go
For
ahead.
all the other books you listed, is there a general age range that you would say?
That is something I should have really marked when I was doing this. And I chose the books by which ones I liked.
Okay, that's fine.
And what I can do is I send you a list if you'd like but here's the thing, books are appropriate for whatever age. But if you'd like, I can. Does anybody else want to jump in on some of these titles? Because first of all, I had some response to this book. Something happened in our neighborhood, and I'm always
Yes.
suspicious of books that are written to teach a lesson. And so I was really glad when I read this book that it was done so thoughtfully, but it had a good story.
Yes.
That's so.
Thank you.
A lot of these books, I would say we're talking more, the children who are in first, second, third, fourth grades, the ones that I've chosen. Except no, these books are books I like. Okay, sorry.
I understand a couple more people raised hands, but I can't see them because of this problem on my machine. So
Sharon McDonald.
great. Sharon?
Yeah, and Sandy Kelly.
Well, I'm a retired children's librarian, and I wasn't aware of these books. These are marvelous, Doris, but there were some around when I was librarianing, and I couldn't get anybody to read them. If I put them on display, if I put them in a dump, if I put them on a list, you could just whistle for it. Nobody would check out those books. We would be able to go into the computer and see how many checkouts they had, and there'd be one. I couldn't get anybody in Bedford excited about reading them.
Well, having been a school librarian, you do have a captive audience. But also one of the things that I found was that I ran a book discussion group for the teachers. And that was a way that I could introduce them. And I would introduce the picture books even to the people who were teaching in 5th and 6th grades, because they are appropriate to be used at all at those, all ages. So I think you have to find a way to get to the parents or the teachers and read them aloud yourself. Yeah, but I agree, it is a problem. I think Sandy was next. Sandy Kelly.
Yeah, just so people understand, I'm also a retired school librarian, like I'm a Doris, but I needed to get back to work and see kids again. So I started working at my public library, and it was a wonderful exposure to the other side of our world. And that's how I got involved with the bibliographies that I was doing. And I forgot what the question. Oh, for those of you who are interested in a particular title, I discovered by going on Amazon and digging down into the listing, you will find the age-appropriate designation that they have selected. You'll also find a lot of reviews. So you might find a Kirkus review or some of the others if you haven't got the book right in your hand, do you really want to buy it? And I found that very helpful. So I thought I would just pass that along.
That's great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
sorry, I hit the wrong button. I'm really striking out here, but everything is fine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
You see under it says Larry. We have a question.
Hi, it's actually Polly
Right.
on Larry's iPad. I
Right,
want to thank you, Doris. This was so interesting. I've made note after note after note. And while you were talking about something happened in our town, I could imagine that book being for older kids sometimes, in a way that something more graphic and maybe a little more accessible might get a conversation going. I felt like it was also very sort of give you an outline for how to discuss sort of difficult things. The other suggestions were just wonderful. I'd like to read them all now. So I echo too, as a grandmother, I really want these books in my hands. Some of them, you know, the older ones I maybe still have from down there, but thank you. This was absolutely wonderful. And as always, if you're reading something, that same feeling when Sharon McDonald did, I stop everything. I have to listen. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
I also wanted to mention, I never knew of Wu Qian Xiong. Is that the way she pronounces her name, Doris?
I called a friend of mine who goes to China a lot and asked him, and he said it's Wu Qian Chung.
Well, it turns out that there's a US postage stamp with her
I didn't
portrait.
know.
Yeah, and I never had heard of her before. I saw it for the first time this year. And I don't know if it's readily available, but they do have one.
Well, I'm going to go look because I also need to get more of the Snowy Day, which I like.
With regard to your bibliography, a few people had asked about it. Would you be willing to share your email address in the chat and people could contact you for that? If they
Sure.
don't have
Yeah.
ready access to it?
Yeah, we put it on the church listing, but
Right, it's in the
that
annex.
doesn't hurt if you're not a member, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm putting in my okay, so in the chat, you'll see my email address, and please feel free to contact me and I'll be glad to send you a copy. Okay, let's see, Sarah has her hand up.
Have you run into people trying to censor books in Bedford or various towns in Massachusetts?
No, the closest that when I was a children's librarian was that people were trying to get rid of, in terms of people who came and talked to me in Bedford, their concern was for the Harry Potter books. And I just actually, unfortunately, I was signed up, not unfortunately, I was signed up to go out to Oregon this last month to a conference on books that have been banned. Unfortunately, I had COVID and missed it. There are lots of people who are concerned, and there are lots of people who are kind of making plans to, you know, as things come up. And of course, like the Massachusetts School Library and Media Association and the American Library Association are good first places to start, because there's lots of information and lots of how to do it, what to do.
Any other questions or comments?
I see Sherry.
Well, first I want to say I love the comment of being a Doris. I love that as a phrase, as a descriptor.
Why did I introduce my daughter?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I was really struck by how many of the stories are based in people's lives, are biographical, and I thought that was nice, the sharing of people's lives.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the bumper sticker, because I feel like that is how we get to know each other. If we could just meet and talk, maybe we could solve a lot of problems.
I saw Sylvia had her hand up or wanted to speak. Sylvia, just unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't, there's something wrong with my camera today. So I just have a picture up, I'm not on camera. I just wanted to say, we've had a group in the Unitarian congregation in Bedford for a year that Lois Pulliam and I started over a year ago, and around issues of racism and othering. And I just want to say, Doris, this is such a wonderful way for people of all ages, but especially to begin to introduce people, young people, to the whole concepts of people that are othered. And racism is such a huge issue in our country. So I really appreciate the work that there are these books out there, and the work that you have done in finding them and bringing them to all of us who came today. I hope we'll all share some of the lists with people we know, so we can have the next generation much more conscious of these stories. So thank you so much.
The thing is, there are so many more that we could have looked at.
Thank you so much, Doris. We can take one more or two more comments and we'll close.
Diane?
Okay. As a retired elementary school teacher, I was retired for 15 years or more. I don't know. I was interested in looking at your list and saying, oh my, I don't know many of those, because I think when I was teaching, I used to use a lot of books, mainly probably a lot of them that related more to slavery and that kind of thing, you know, Sweet Clara and the Freedom Quilt, or the Harriet Tubman books, or Ruby Bridges, those kind of things. Those are the ones I was more familiar with, and you've brought me up to speed with a lot more contemporary books. And so I thank you for that. Yeah, very much.
Thanks.
You can take one more. I can't see who's holding up hands. I truly apologize. Anyone else?
Sylvia's hand, is that up? Sylvia, I see your hand. Is that, oh, no, it's gone now.
Okay, and let me just see if there's anybody in the participant list. No, okay. Well, Doris, thank you. You put a lot into this. I was absolutely delighted. I think everybody shares the same feeling about your presentation, and it's awesome to know there are such wonderful writers and illustrators bringing out such important topics with such beauty and creativity. So thank you.
Well, thank you all who took the time to come and listen. I appreciate that very much. And we are just so fortunate. There are so many wonderful books for young children.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed and been inspired by today's program. Just to let people know, today's presentation is the final Lyceum until September. We hope to have a couple of volunteers to carry the ball hereafter. And we hope you have a wonderful summer. All the best. And thank you again for joining us. Goodbye.